Freddie is a Hall of Fame trainer and owns the Wild Card Gym. And you've been here 13 years.
13 years, yeah.
What got you into training?
You know, when I retired from boxing, I was a little frustrated and didn't really know which way to go. I didn't think I wanted anything to do with boxing anymore, so I started drinking a little bit, just getting, you know, just doing bad things, and getting in trouble, get a job. And that lasted about a year, and then Virgil Hill asked me if I would help him get ready for his next fight, because Eddie Fudge, my trainer and Virgil's trainer at the time, Eddie was so busy with other fighters, with Joe Spinks and Larry Holmes and so forth. So I started training Virgil Hill, and a year later I had my first world champion.
You trained with Eddie Fudge during your career, and then how much of an influence was he on your style of boxing?
Tremendous amount. I mean,
okay.
a lot of Eddie's rubbed off on me. You know, he trained me for 9 years as a pro fighter, and then I worked for him for 5 years as his assistant. And he was a great teacher. You know, he could really pick apart. His best asset was he could get you ready for a strategy for a fight. You know, he came up with a great game plan and so forth, and he taught me a lot about that. And you know, it's kind of funny because he taught me as a fighter at first, and then to be a trainer was a whole different world. You know, you know, and he taught me some good lessons along the way.
How was the transition from fighter to trainer?
You know, it was completely like opposite for me. Like, it was just, you know, I was used to being the guy who told what to do by Eddie's and all the actions of it. And then the training, you got to step back and take a better look at it, at what you're doing, instead of like just going out to throw punches over it. You want to see what opponent's weakness is, and of course in your own fight is his strengths and weaknesses and what you need to work on. You know, I was always big on. I never worked really much on what they did well because they do that well anyway. You know, so okay. I was always working on what they don't do well, just improving their whole game. It's even like Pacquiao now. I know he's a couple-time world champion, but you know, there's still things that he has weak points that we try to improve on still.
Okay. Now, is there a signature style that, you know, like Custom Art had the peekaboo style, and is there something, you know, signature about Eddie Fudge that made his style, you know, you could look at a fighter and say, oh, that's, you know, Eddie Fudge's style, or that's influenced by...
Not really, because Eddie would take, like I do also, is take the fighter's natural instinct and natural ability and go with that. You know, one thing my dad taught me as a young show, because my dad was pretty good trained me as an amateur, and Eddie taught me also, don't try to change a fighter. Okay. Because when the bell rings or when he gets hit, he's going to revert back to what he is. Okay. If, you know, if he's a counter puncher or he's aggressive, like with Virgil Hill, you know, the thing when we trained to fight Tommy Hearns, Virgil is a guy, a counter puncher, moving away a lot. He uses a really good jab, so we fought Tommy Hearns, and the way to beat Tommy Hearns is back him up. So as soon, you know, we did that the whole training camp. Back guys up, back guys up. But when the bell rang and Tommy landed the first punch in the first round, Virgil went back to being a boxer. You know, so it was a great lesson learned there, that fighters will always go back to what they are. So I believe I'm building on their natural ability. Don't take that away from them, but improve it.
Okay. Now, you've trained a bunch of world champions and Hall of Fame trainer. These guys that you deal with, you know, you've seen some great fighters that you've worked with over the years. What is it mentally that separates, you know, a champion from, you know, a guy who's not gonna make it?
You know, when they say a champion's born and not made, I really truly believe that. Okay. I think, you know, a good trainer can help them, guide them along the way, but, you know, when the bell rings, you know, we do sit down and they fight. So I think it's really up to them, and I think champions are born, you know, like, you know, great athletes. And back in the day, though, you know, in the 40s and 50s, like, you know, those guys, they learned their lesson well. They were craftsmen at boxing. Today's fighters are more good athletes, like a Roy Jones. You know, he has so much speed and natural ability that he can get away with making mistakes. Because he's not a textbook boxer like Joe Louis was or something like this. I think the boxing's changed a little bit. The fighters now the champions out there, they're just really good athletes, and they just get over with their speed. Speed and power is again something you can't really teach that well. You can improve it, but you really can't change a person's speed or power.
Yeah, that was another question I was going to ask you, like what the difference between fighters, not only fighters, but the difference between fighters now and then and the difference between trainers now and then.
The thing is, back then, you know, as we know, we had a lot more role models to go off of, I think, back then. You know, you had a gym full of champions and so forth, you know, the gyms like, you know, the bigger gyms, and, you know, like, of course, Miami was a big, when Ali was training at Main Street, 5th Street Gym back there, he had like 4 or 5 other champions in there, you know, and all good role models were young guys to watch and emulate, you know, and you know, they would see these guys making moves and so forth. Today you don't have that. You don't have that anymore. You know, nowadays, you know, if you have one champion in a gym and so forth, it's a great thing. But we've been lucky enough to have a couple here. But I think you don't have the activity, you don't have the role models. You know, back in the day, you could lose some fights and become a better fighter, because that's what makes you learn. But nowadays, if you lose a fight, they call you washed up. You're all done.
Yeah, I know.
Guys learn a lot more when they lose. You know, when they win, you can say, well, you did this wrong, yeah, but I won. But you know, when a guy loses, you know, he doesn't have that excuse. You know, he can't really. He'll listen to, you know, you made this mistake and that mistake, and you know, we got to stop making those mistakes. Otherwise, you'll lose again. My dad told me back when he was fighting, you didn't fight a main event until you had like 30 pro fights. You know, but nowadays, I got a kid from Ireland just came over here. He won the Australian title in his 6th pro fight in a 12-rounder. I said, 6th pro fight. I said, the kid's, he's a baby still. I mean, I can't put him in 10 rounders here in America, of course. But it's a different world. Competition is much harder here in America than Australia, of course. But still, it's amazing that these guys fight a couple fights and then all of a sudden, you know, they're fighting 10, 12 rounders, and they don't even get their feet wet yet.
If you look at most sports like football, basketball, like you can't compare, you know, a team from the 60s to a team today in football or basketball. They get crushed. How does that, what's the equivalent to that boxing?
You know, I get in arguments sometimes over this, because you look at every sport in the world. We're faster, we're bigger, we're stronger. You know, every sport they can be measured by time or distance, we're better at. But why not boxing? You know, and then sometimes the old timers will ask me, who's the best fighter of all time? I'll say Sugar Ray. They say, oh yeah, Robinson? I said, no, Leonard. Because he's 6-time world champion, gold medalist. He's a great fighter. You know? I just throw that to get a little rise out of him. But you know, the thing is, back in the day, you know, you fought hundreds of fights. You learned your trade. You know, it wasn't a career-ending period when you lost a fight. You know, the thing is, you know, I just think that they had more competition back then. You fought more often, and you know what? Like, if I keep a fighter busy and all the time and keep him fighting once a month, you get a sharp fighter. You get a good fighter. You know, the thing is, when fighters have downtime, this is when they get in trouble. They get heavy. You know, they eat too much. They put on 30, 40, 50 pounds over. Because you know, nowadays with TV, with the World Championship fights, there's only so many days. So if you're a champion, if you fight twice a year, you're doing pretty good. If you fight 3 times, you're doing great. I mean, 3 times a year. How can you really be sharp? But the old timers, they fought 10, 12 times a year, and they stayed sharp all the time, you know. And they had a lot less sparring and so forth, because they were sharp from that fight. They didn't have to go in the gym and spar all those rounds and get back in shape and lose all that weight. So it's a different world now. It's almost a totally different sport in some ways.
Why don't they fight as often as they did?
TV. because TV won't pay that money and so forth. And guys don't want to risk losing their title and so forth without TV money.
Okay.
You know, so it's just there's only so many dates out there. You know, HBO and the easiest, and you don't have network TV anymore doing fights. You know? So it's really more difficult to keep those numbers up because the champions, they want to be paid for their title, of course, but you know what, it'd be a lot easier, or they would be a lot better off taking small fights, 10 rounders in between just to stay sharp.
Yeah.
But they all want that big money.